I'm Steve Davis with the business team, and today we're going to be talking about traps for supervisors. We're going to start out with payroll processing pointer by our own Sean Owens.
Thank you, sir. Welcome, everybody. Glad you guys can be with us. Today I want to go ahead and touch on something to be dealing with here as the holiday season rolls around, and that's some important pointers for your payroll processing during the holidays. First, start off with making sure to coordinate your payroll cycles properly with the different holidays that's coming through, from Halloween, which actually is Saturday this year, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas. All of those times are always very busy, and you need to know what days are actual federal holidays where the banks are going to be closed. That's obviously very important for your processing of your bank transactions and any of your that may have direct deposit, pay cards. Make sure that your employees are properly compensated for any holiday time that they might work or you might pay, and make sure to give yourself plenty of time to get your payroll in an appropriate amount of time that you have scheduled. Try not to run your payroll cycle right up until, or your processing right up until the last minute before your payday. And sure that your employees are working the proper amount of hours and that you're not overpaying them or under them with your calculations on holiday time versus overtime. I'll touch on that more here with the next bullet point. Make understanding in general of straight time and overtime. The FLA, which we've touched on previous, sets forth some good information and the federal laws contained within about paying overtime and straight time. And I won't go into too much detail there, but you can actually visit our website and look through our catalog on our webinars, and there is a webinar that I think it's 2 back, where we covered pretty extensively overtime and straight time. Make sure that you're, and I just touched on this, but make sure that you're not including your holiday time and PTO time in your calculations for over. The next bullet point I'd like to talk a minute about is to plan your bonus. And a lot of companies are paying bonuses here, and you want to make sure you give yourself plenty of time to process those, because you know, take time for your employees on the amount of bonus that you're paying and the taxes that may be withheld. Give yourself plenty of time to plan for your bonuses and how you're, and the next bullet point, Sean, is PTO time off during the holidays. Again, everyone has a hectic, busy schedule, and you have employees who are going to be taking them off. It's a good idea to really make sure your calendar is up to date with the company, that your employees, all your managers from the top down, have a good understanding going on and who's taking time off, where they're going to, etc. Just an overall awareness for your company about the holiday work schedule, what days you plan to give your employees off, what days your business will be open and what days closed. Even taking that a step further, make sure you're giving your clients notice on when you're going to be available and when you're not. It's a good idea just for good communication skills, that schedule posted somewhere where all of your employees and your manager do that. That's all I have for today. Thank you guys very much.
Will be followed by our Safety Minute with Ron Wolford, our Safety Director.
Thanks, Steve. Everybody, I want to talk to you today about preparing for weather. As the temperatures drop, you need to pay close attention to weather forecasts on all the TV channels. They'll let you know how to prepare ahead. Usually they'll give you 7 to 9 days ahead, but do that, update that on a basis because sometimes storms move in faster than anticipated. For yourself, your children, and your pets for the day ahead, if you're going to be trying to get to work, not be able to get in or out themselves, or children don't necessarily know to dress appropriately. Check on elderly parents and neighbors if the weather does get extreme. Have your home heater serviced and ready, and make sure it's able to operate in a safe little fire out of crepe paper and stuff like that, like a little campfire that's around to different rooms in your house, and say, okay, it's in the kitchen. How would you get out? Or this is how you need to get out. Number 2, dress in layers if the temperature rise. The temperatures rise during the day. Always take off some of the outer layers and stuff so you're not burning up or get too hot. Wear a cap. It'll help your body maintain its temperature. Your heat dissipates out through your head. Wear the proper footwear for the climate. Icy or snowy or even deep water. Wear the appropriate shoes and stuff so that you don't have to spend all day at your office with wet feet or wet. Point number 3, make sure that you're ready for extreme weather. Keep a set of jumper cables in the trunk in case your battery or maybe a coworker's should fail. You can get them back going until they can get to a place that's serviced or changed. Have some water and a blanket in the car in case you get stranded in your. Make sure your tires are in good shape. You need something that'll get you decent traction if the road gets slick and hazardous. Keep your fuel tank topped off. It's easier to keep the top half full as it is to keep the bottom full. Make sure you have the vehicle phone charger in your car so that if you are stranded, at least you can keep a line of communication open between you and your rescuers. That's all I have. Any questions or anybody have any comments to go along with that?
Ron, it looks like we do have a question regarding smoke detectors. It looks like someone wants to know where are good locations within the house that your smoke detector should be.
Building code requires that you find in each sleeping quarters of the house and in the adjacent hall that to the entry points to those beds. Also, it's a good idea and a CO2 detector somewhere close to your kitchen where it's done. And if you have a fireplace, not too close because sometimes you'll get a little smoke out of a real wood fireplace. But somewhere in the vicinity or just around the corner from where you might have an open fire. Any other questions?
For that valuable information. Now we'll move on to our topic today, HR tips and traps for supervisor with Kyle Killingsworth.
Have I lost audio?
Guys, it appears we're having a technical issue here. Give us just a minute while we try to get it cleared up.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes,
Yes, Kyle, we can hear you now. Thank you very much. Sorry, we had a glitch there.
I apologize for that technical. Go back just a little bit and talk about what we're going to be focusing on for the next few minutes around these tips and traps that our managers, our supervisors at times have some exposure to. We'll look at some key laws that impacts our decisions. We'll also take a look at how to avoid certain situations, and I do want to give you some practical examples as well. We can avoid any distractions in much of the information that I'll share with you. You've seen before, you've heard before. I just want a review of these best practices and with the rest of your managers, as we all have some responsibility and at times exposure. Let's start out with tips. One of the most common complaints I get from clients is that a manager has made it to an employee that is not consistent with what's in our employee handbook. What do we do? Well, if it's been a while since your managers have looked at the handbook or look at the policies and procedures, they need to be familiar with those. Most of the employees will go direct manager. They'll go seek answers from their direct manager. Normally that's the person, their chain of command, that's the person that they know the best, they trust the best, and that they are the most open to and have access to. And you see, you don't have a formal employee manual, the formal employee, well then what we need to do is understand practices. What are the practices that you're adheres to? And in those to be consistent with the practices of in the past. For example, if we treat one person one way, ask for a particular favor, let's say, and the next we tell them something different, that's confused, please, and they don't understand why someone gets to do it and maybe I don't. Maybe it's leave early on a Friday afternoon to try and get out of town. Whatever request, whatever the favor may be, we need to be consistent, as well as consist with our discipline. We'll talk more about discipline in a minute, but the main discipline is consistency, because what drives complaints, what distractions in the workplace, is that we are and then people point to that and don't understand why we're in. So let's eliminate those distractions. Let's eliminate those rumors. And be consistent. Particularly when it comes to people's time off. We need to know what the is. People, as we all are very sensitive to our away from work, we manage our vacation, we manage our pay. And so it's important that we pay attention to that or adhere to lines that are out there with the organization. As the probably is trying to follow the rules, we need to as managers. The second topic I want to talk about is equal opportunity. Equal opportunity is the law of the land. And let me be clear that equal opportunity is around prohibiting any decisions based on race, color, religion, sex, age, national origin of that employee. These individuals classes, and they're actually called protected classes, have protection of EOC laws. I also want to say that be clear, this does not just apply to those candidates, those applicants, current employees. So hiring, we talk about firing, pay, training and promotion type of decision, all of that would be covered under equal opportunity. So in a sense, that equal opportunity covers the entire life of an employee. And when I talk about a life cycle, I'm talking the life cycle would begin when they actually apply, not apply because recruiting and candidates are covered under equal opportunity, all the while until that individual is COBRA plan. Anything between those events and when they leave your COBRA plan, if they do go to COBRA, anything in the middle of that, hiring, transferring, promotion, even terminations for under the EEOC laws. So I just want to emphasize that to you. If you have questions regarding what you're facing, you're welcome to contact partners. Many of you have some legal resources that you well. So you're not in this alone. You're not in this alone and by yourself. So reach out to other resources, out to other folks who can help guide and direct you to make your as you make your decision. Tip is around employees, particularly millennial generation coming into the workplace have an expectation that they're going to receive current and constant feedback. It's just part of the way that they're built. Our workforce is moving to. Currently, about 17 of our workforce are from that millennial generation. In 5 years, by 2020, it'll be almost percent of our workforce. And we're not going to be into them as they come into the workforce, as many of us are already seeing, to adjust some of our management style in order to accommodate that can be successful and productive in the workplace. So we have two types of feedback discussed briefly. One is around positive feedback. We know what that looks like. That's praising the employee, congratulating the employee, encouraging the employee in the efforts that they've done. And the other is what we call developmental feedback. Now, our employees at times need some constructive criticism. They have some development opportunities, some growth opportunities, and we need to coach them around what that looks like. We need to have them have an awareness of it, and then also support them with a solution so that they can grow and learn and be trained. Many times as supervisors, we just don't take the time to provide feedback. And if we do, it's usually positive feedback. We appreciate somebody. We thank what they've done or the effort they put in this week, or for closing that, or for getting a project pushed over the goal line. But part of our role is to develop those individuals and provide them the coaching and feedback. First thing, element of feedback is you've got to make some observations. So if our managers and supervisors are so busy doing things, it's time to step back and look at what's going on around them, specifically look at how their team is performing, then they're not going to be able to provide that. The employees need both types of feedback, the and the developmental. One of the questions all of us have in our minds is we want to know how we're doing. This is the opportunity to answer for employees. How am I doing on my job? You provide them constant feedback. And when I say constant feedback, I'm talking about more like weekly feedback. Weekly feedback. Another tip that I discuss is how to attract talent, attracting employees. And I think the first step in that, as we all know, around recruitment. There are a lot of different channels you should be thinking about when you go out into the marketplace and look for qualified candidates to fill your jobs. And what we talk about is filling a pool of candidates. Have resources, have resumes on hand in accordance with what your business plan or your HR plan looks like. If you know that you're going to grow your business seasonally, for example, then 60, 90 days prior, begin collecting resumes, begin collecting applicants so you will have a pool, a database when you're ready to begin that selection process. You have enough candidates to select. Say candidates, I'm talking about truly qualified, talented candidates, rather than just taking second, or rather than just taking what's available at the moment. Do your planning. As we all know, what drives our business are our people. What makes us successful are other human resources that we have, that we have an expectation that they're going to perform. We have an expectation that they're going to deliver and be productive. So the attracting the right people up front. So take some time, plan that through that as supervisors and managers. Many times we get so busy that we don't think that, but look forward on your calendar and understand what kind of resources you need or may need in a backfill situation in case somebody would leave. And that's the next tip I want to talk about, is retaining employees. There's some basic things that we need to do to retain employees. And the first one is around compensation, that employee packet, that benefits. It also includes any paid programs that you have. There needs to be a basic and level of compensation and then in order to attract and retain those employees. Let me give you an example. If you were applying for a role in an organization and you, through the interview process, that company did not offer any time off, any pay, whether that was for vacation, whether that was for sick pay, whether that was for holiday pay, they did not offer any paid time off. Of us would probably not continue on in that recruiting selection. We would opt out of that because there's an expectation that we all have that there's going to be some basics met in that compensation package. One of those would be some time off, say maybe sick combined with vacation. So it's important that you look at the package and ensure that basics. Now there's no laws that require you to get vacation. There's no law where you pay sick time, and there's no law requiring you to provide holiday pay. But most organizations, most, if not all organizations, in order to attract and retain it, need to meet a basic threshold in that. And what drives your threshold, your industry, your area, and because that's the risk that you have someone leaving your organization and go to work for a competitor with a better compensation package. If I ask you now to think in your organization that if they left, if they were to come in this afternoon, if they were to offer their nation, it would really hurt. We have those key people in our organization, have those key people on our team that we depend on, them, and they're good at it, our stars. And those are the suggest that you focus your retention effort. One of the most simple things that you can do is have what we call a stay conversation. A conversation. It's a simple acknowledgement of the value they have with the organization and how important. And it's also understanding what motivates, what are they interested in, and what career path, what career plans they have in mind for themselves. For example, if you have an employee that likes to work on a certain type of project, and he doesn't get to do that, she doesn't get to do that very often, you can discuss during this stay conversation. And then you can commit to that. The next that I have, I'm going to do my best to put you in a position to work on that project in the area that you'd like to work in the area that you're interested in working in. And also understand what plans are. They may want to grow with your organization. That would be very positive to any company to have a superstar who wanted to develop and grow in that organization. We'll provide them a plan. Work with them in gaining the skills and the knowledge that they need to move the promotions appropriate to their organization based on their knowledge and ability. At times they may not have the knowledge. At times they may not have the skill. So that's part of the plan that you would discuss during that stay conversation. Now, I wouldn't make unreasonable promises during that. Make an unreasonable promise that you're going to guarantee that person a scholarship to some prestigious school that may cost tens of thousands of dollars. But be reasonable about it. Understand what they're passionate about. Understand what motivates them and where they want to move in the organization. It may be they want to move out of operations and move into your IT department or lead your IT department. Well, they may need to go to some technical training for that. This is an opportunity to understand, talk about a plan so that we show an interest in those star players that we do, again, want to retain. And we would all, if you put yourself in that role, we would all appreciate a stay conversation from our boss. We would understand the value that we're adding to the organization, the concern, the care that they have in order to develop us, to grow us, to be a future part of the organization. So again, a very effective tool, and it doesn't cost anything to do that. The support may, but the conversation itself does not. The bottom bullet I want to talk a little bit more about is development. We talk about developing employees. We talked about some of that during the stay conversation. There's kind of two pieces to that, the training part and then what we call the development part. As you can see on the screen, the training is to improve that employee's current performance in the job that they're in. If we could provide them some training to include their performance, to increase their productivity, then not only do they benefit from that, but the organization is. The other part is around development. Development talks about skills or talents that they would need in the future. If you were looking at someone, again, to grow with your organization, then you may consider a development plan for them. Looking at the skills they're going to need in that next role, what skills are going to need promoted to the next level, and fill those skill gaps with some development plans. Piece and developers is to give them performance appraisal, them understand where they are by providing that. We go back to feedback again. We give specific feedback on how they're doing on their job. Are they performing at work? And this can be done in a way, or this can be done in an informal way. Larger to mid-sized companies actually have a formal where goals are set, reviewed at a mid-year point, and then they're reviewed, evaluated, and rated at the end of the year. And you say, well, Kyle, we don't have any formal process. We don't have that many employees. Then I would suggest that your team, your supervisors, adapt at least an informal process. Time to time, where that's quarterly, whether that's a year or so, have where you will actually sit down, discuss that with that employee on their job. How are they performing? And let them know. Back to our question, we all want to know how in our career. We all want to know how we're doing job in the company, in the organization that we work for. formalized process, as I mentioned. These are to a rating. A person will get some numeric, whether it's a 2, whether it's a 3, whether it's a 4, whether it's a 5, based their assessment by their manager, and then that is what determines the merit increases or raises that they may be receiving that they deserve, or even if you don't have that formal process, develop an informal process with your employees. They will understand from time to time, I'm going to hear back from my boss, and I'm going to specifically hear back from them on what am I doing in my role, how am I at my job. That also may lead to some diversities that you would want to discuss with them. In training, as we talked about a moment ago. I'm going to second, before we move on, any traps, some of the traps that I want. Are there any questions on the tips that we talked about, or feedback? Performance appraisal, equal opportunity. You're welcome to type your questions in the chat, or you can just phone, and we'll take them at this time. All right, we'll move forward then with the traps. And the first, very simply and stately, it's illegal to hire illegals. Some of the calls that we field almost every month has something to do with the verifiability and employment eligibility as required I-9 form. And we know that within 3 days of the date of hire, we need to complete that I-9 form and have proper identity that we've reviewed according to the form. And many times that person's coming into work a day, worked at 2, work 3, work 5, and you press them and you press them and you press them for that eligibility documentation. He's stalling around that, but they're doing a pretty good job. In fact, they picked up on things pretty quick. We see a lot of potential. Well, that may be the case, but if you cannot complete that I-9 form with the documentation that requires, then you're putting your organization at risk. Our counsel and our advice would be, it's not worth it. It's simply not worth it. We've got to have proper documents on anyone that we hire, anyone that we put role. One of the other traps that supervisors fall into is kind of opening their mouth and inserting their foot. Share too much personal information. Certain individuals in our organization have us to personal managers, personal information, employees, and I'm just not talking about, I'm talking about family situations, maybe relations, then whatever that may be, but we have a responsibility to keep that personal information confidential, not just legally and morally. We have a responsibility to guard that, keep it from other employees and other managers. I think a good rule of thumb on that, if you think you do need to share some information, you need to ask the hard question, is this individual in to know position? In other words, absolutely need to know this to be able to do their job. And many times to stop because the decision will be made. They don't need someone's family in order to manage that person's productivity. They don't need to know about their national origin in order to individual's performance. So a lot of times that will answer the question for itself. There's some information there at the bottom that goes beyond what we think of salary or something of that nature. And that's the trap that managers at times is just sharing too much information. They tend to get in trouble around that and share that with folks that are not in a need-to-know situation. One other legal topic that I want to touch on before we close today is there are certain questions that are deemed to be good to stay away from, even to the point of being illegal questions. A lot of that stuff with this around hiring, when you're interviewing candidates for roles that you have open position. We've probably all seen a list of those, but it's always good to remind managers, particularly those that don't do when they have an opening and you know they're about them interviewing. It's good to remind them of what questions look like. And you can simply go out to the internet, you can Google that, you can, from the team here at Partners HR, for a list of that. It's readily available information. It's not like top secret information at all. And these are some good guides to help all of us, particularly those managers that don't interview frequently, as a reminder. Even to the point of asking someone if they're married, or if they have any children, or even what their leisure activities are on the weekend. Questions just left and stayed away from, because they can lead to difficult situations that we just want to fall into the traps for. A good reminder to all managers that they are the company. Their actions, their decisions, their words, their commitment, even the way they behave, reflective on the company, and the company can be held liable for that. A good reminder that courts have held that managers act on behalf of the, and at times they can be held liable for what they do or what they failed to do. I had a call from a manager, one of our clients. They were doing a relations issue where one of the other managers seen some documentation that will be used to terminate another. They were not in a need-to-know position. They took it upon themselves to, once they had that information, they then went to what they thought was a confidant in the organization and made a comment that soon-to-be terminated employees' sexuality to that confidant. Or so they thought it was a confidant, because the confidant had to be of the same sexual preference the individual that was being terminated, which led to a complaint against that manager. That we as supervisors and we as leaders have at times does have consequences. We need to be careful, and you need to warn you regarding taking certain information and then using that information in a derogatory, meaning type of way. Unfortunately, this was not a first offense for that manager, and that organ has got a tough decision to make. This manager had been before on very similar grounds. So what that was going through today, and with to have a meeting with him tomorrow, is away from productivity. They're taking away from performance and what they need to be doing to see if they want to continue with that manager. If they even take the risk of that manager slipping up again and causing more complaints and potentially even some type of charge. Remind your managers that they represent the company, say, better than what they do. This is one of the biggest that we see at Partners HR clients. It's to lose that, forget that they're representing the company in a way that is either or it's sometimes detrimental organization. About some traps in the last 10 minutes, you have an opportunity to ask any you may have. Some of the questions you may have or may be more personal and confidential that you wouldn't share openly on the phone. Understand that, and we're for consultation. Welcome to reach out to myself. Our information is coming up on the screen, or you're welcome to reach out to Partners, and we'll get you in contact with that expert to help you deal with your particular situation. So I'll pause now and see if there are any questions. Well, before I turn it back close, is on the screen, Kay Killingsworth at Partners. If you have questions, reach out to me. Copy this presentation to share with your team. I'll be happy to provide. Just drop me a note at my email address, and I will sure and forward that to you. Wanted to say thank you for participating, and I'm going to turn the time back to Steve.
Thanks, Kyle. Thanks for your participation today. Next month's topic will be success in dealing with difficult conversations. We'll redo this session this week at 3 o'clock. Invited to join us again, or anyone that's interested that we're running. I appreciate your participation.